I remember hearing my first motivational speech from Eric Thomas. It was during a time that I was really starting to feel sorry for myself because I was putting in the work, but nothing was happening. At least that's what I was telling myself. That was until E.T. hit me with a few of his quotes. He said, "When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. Are you ready to sacrifice who you are for what you will become? Pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, or an hour, or a day, or even a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. But if I quit, however, it will last forever." Then he hit me with the next one. He said, "It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not." What? I had to listen to it like 3 or 4 times. And what I found out once I actually understood what he meant, I could see that it was absolutely holding me back. You see, I was all about focusing on who I thought I wasn't, instead of who I really was. And when I understood this quote on a deep level, it gave me the power to stop pushing success away, and instead helped me lean into who I really was and start attracting more success to me. If you're ready to dissect this quote so you can get to the root of what is actually holding you back, let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go. So this quote about it's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. What does that mean to you?
What I found is my brain has a way of telling me stories that I actually start to believe that kind of holds me back. What it really was doing was getting me to play small. I mean, at the time I was trying to create a successful business so I could leave my job, but I was also a full-time police officer. And so I would use the stories of, I don't know how to sell. I literally am just a police officer. What am I going to do on social media? I have no idea how to track the right clients. And all of these other things related to business would pop up. And I would convince myself that I could never learn those things. Like they weren't a skill that I could just learn. I was basically trapping myself in a box. And when you do that, you actually can't find your way out. Now, what a lot of people talk about these as are limiting beliefs. These are stories that we tell ourselves because of our past, because of our current situation, because of maybe things we've tried before. And we believe it so much that we don't try anything new, that we don't step out of our comfort zone, that we don't learn the skills that we need to learn. And I can't tell you how long I was protecting those excuses. Because like E.T. says, is when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And I just kept them time after time after time. And that's what we want to help you with today. So I have a question for you related to limiting beliefs. How do you first identify that you have a limiting belief? What do you do to overcome them?
So when you identify a limiting belief, it's your choice to either believe it or reframe your mind around it. So everybody has limiting beliefs in many different areas. However, some people choose to think about things a little bit differently. I know that sometimes it can be really hard to break down some of these beliefs that we've had our entire lives. And it doesn't mean that you can do that from one day to another. However, if you start chipping away at it and not focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing, then you can start to fill those beliefs with things that can actually help you move forward.
Yeah, one of the points that you just said there is our brain, especially when we talk about our head voice like we do in our certification, is it gets us to focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing. And it's kind of like that thing of, if I focus my attention on this, then I'll probably be able to fix it. But in reality, if you're not good enough, if you don't believe that you can do those things, take those actions, or you've tried it before and you haven't succeeded, you're going to convince yourself not to do it again. And what's crazy is when we're focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing, we actually manifest or create more of what's broken, wrong, or missing. Mm-hmm. But there's a different place, right? There's a different place where you can tap into your passion, your purpose, what you're here to do, the impact that you want to make. And when you can tap into that, a lot of time it being other people, right? Then you can actually reframe those limiting beliefs. So I guess one way that you actually identify if it's a limiting belief or not is really asking yourself, is it focusing on what's broken, wrong, or missing? And is it getting me to show up in a way that I don't want to show up? If that's the case, more than likely, it is a limiting belief. Now, as coaches, we actually help guide people through limiting beliefs all the time. Sometimes being on the inside and getting it from your point of view, you can't even see that it's limiting you. That's also why we have coaches and we reach out to people to get them to identify our limiting beliefs too. So I also don't want you to think that you can do this all on your own. We just want to help you start becoming more aware now.
So can you share a personal experience of when you realized the impact of self-perception on your success?
I mean, I don't have enough fingers to be able to count all the times. These are things like, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I just got off of work. How am I going to build a business like this? There were so many different things that prevented me from seeing the potential that was out there. I mean, I didn't gain 100 pounds without letting my limiting beliefs take over. I mean, I was really looking for all the reasons not to exercise, not to spend time outside of work, because my brain was strictly focused on, well, in order for you to have success as a police officer, you need to give all of your time and energy there. And that was another way that my brain was convincing me that, hey, you can't excel at both of these. You can only pick one. And I didn't even realize it was actually hidden in there and trying to convince me that I couldn't do those other things. But when I started to open up and I started to ask myself, how could I? How could I excel as a parent, as a spouse, as a police officer, and not only take care of my health, but also grow a business? And when I started to ask myself those questions, I started to find other answers. But when I was dead set on, I don't have the time, you don't look for the time, right? It's not possible. Well, you don't look for the possibilities, because then you sell yourself on, I can keep living small. I don't have to do those uncomfortable things, and I don't have to find, whether it's another person, another team, a new skill, whatever that uncomfortable thing is, or even have a difficult conversation with someone, because you can give it to yourself that it's already going to fail in advance. And by default, I was failing. So now I want to throw it to you. So what strategies or techniques can viewers use to shift their mindset from self-doubt into more self-belief?
I always think about the mountain analogy, where we're constantly climbing mountains. And sometimes it feels like this time it's harder simply because it's the current mountain you're on. But just think about how many other mountains you've climbed. In your life, there has always been something that you're at the very bottom of the mountain, and it just seems like something impossible. But at some point you did climb that mountain and you reached the top. So think about those times. Think about the successes that you've had, because success leaves clues. And maybe it's in a different area, but you can still apply the principles that you use to succeed in the past.
Yeah, I really love that. I also like to think about, related to specific goals that you're trying to achieve, that once you climb a mountain, you've learned how to climb a mountain, and you know what shoes to wear, who to hang out with, where to stop, take, ask for directions, do all those things. You've done it before. And like you said, it's just this mountain feels so hard because it's a new mountain, but you know how to climb mountains now. And it also reminds me of, if you're at the point where you've reached the halfway point of your mountain, right? And then maybe you sputtered out, maybe you got a little bit unmotivated and you stopped climbing. You don't have to walk to the bottom before you start again. You get to pick up wherever you left off. So a lot of times people say that they're starting over. And you just saying that out loud just feels like, right? You never start over unless you believe you start over. You always get to start from the place where you're at right now. And I know when you're trying something new, it could feel like you're starting over, but you get to actually have all of the skills, all of the things that you've learned in your life, all the things that you've gone through. You get to bring that into your next mountain only if you choose to focus on that. That's why ET says it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. Because sometimes we even forget who we were and the things that we have gone through. And we remember that empowers us to get up, to take action, and to do the things that we know we need to do.
So I think that's really about embracing your true identity. So in what ways can embracing our true identity help us reach our true potential?
The first thing that comes up for me when you say that is, it is physically and mentally exhausting to try and be someone else, because you're constantly trying to put on different personas in different situations. And we do have different situations that we have to show up differently, right? So when I was a police officer, I had to show up differently than when I came home to be a father and I came up to be a coach. But in reality, if I was also trying to be someone else in those situations, and I would be trying to be someone that I'm not, which means I have different strengths and I also have different weaknesses. And if I try to pretend like I'm someone else where they're strong and I'm weak, it's only going to show up eventually. It's just going to feel really inauthentic. And I remember this really powerful quote by Josh Coates where he says, "Why settle for the second-rate version of someone else when the best version of you is always available?" Because that is always available. People follow you, people look up to you, and people are inspired by you because of you and your story, what you've done and what you have accomplished. That's why it's always important to just be yourself. Now, we talked about being yourself, but I have a question about this whole imposter syndrome. So what advice do you have for people who are struggling with imposter syndrome or some feelings of inadequacy when it comes to actually stepping into who they are?
I think simply it's to find the right people to hang out with because it's contagious. Sometimes people inspire us to be who we are because they are living in authenticity. So finding that group of people who are really succeeding and just embracing their true identity can really help us in doing that as well.
I've always found in every area of my life, how I speed up growth is that exact thing, is finding other people who share similar values and goals, who are not willing to give up, who believe in me. And when I surround myself with them, like you said, it is completely contagious. And the opposite is true too. If I don't take full control of the people that I spend time with, it's very easy to convince myself to lean back into limiting beliefs because they believe their beliefs about themselves, which makes it so much easier for me to believe mine. But when you hang out in the right room, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's the right room. Sometimes it feels like maybe you don't deserve to be in there. But in reality, whenever that happens, I always remind myself, then this is exactly where I need to be. Now, for those of you who don't know, we actually have a business leadership book club where we dive into books around business and leadership, very specific to the topics we talk about today. I'll leave you the link inside of the description. It's completely free. And we also have a community of family-driven entrepreneurs called our Inner Circle. This is where you can get access to Teresa and I 2 times a month so we can help guide you through the things that could potentially be holding you back and allow us to become your coaches. If you're interested in checking out our group for family-driven entrepreneurs, click the join button below and it'll break it down for you. And remember what E.T. said, when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Thank you for being willing to lean in and to see things differently. And above all, keep leading from the front, team.